28 Days Later is the best zombie film. There, I said it, I know, a controversial statement. But not only that, it's far and away one of the best horror films out there. 28 Days Later was directed by Danny Boyle and written by Alex Garland. The film opens with images of riots and protests being displayed on different monitors. But then as the camera pulls away, we see a chimp is tied up, being forcefully shown these images. You then see more and more cages with animals, and it becomes quite clear that tests are being run on all these animals. You see a group of animal rights protesters break in. As they go to release the chimp, they are told very clearly that the animal is infected, with a highly contagious disease that runs through the blood, that's just referred to as rage. After the scientist desperately tries to stop them, they go ahead and release the chimp anyway. The chimp is so hyper-aggressive that it lunges towards the woman and just starts tearing her apart. Chimps are scary enough anyway, with the stories you hear of what happens to those people who try and keep them as pets, but they are so much worse here. After the others desperately start bashing this chimp to death to get it off of her, it's too late, and the infection has spread. Before you know it, this has gone from being a small, well-contained virus to immediately infecting everyone, making them mindless killing machines and only feeling the most intense anger and just wanting to kill everything within their path. Once all of this chaos has erupted, the film cuts to 28 days later. You see the inside of a hospital and it's silent. The only person there is our main man Jim, who slowly wakes up. His head has been shaved and stitched on one side, so he was clearly in some quite serious accident before waking up from his coma. He's completely naked in a room that's been boxed shut. As he leaves the room, he frequently calls hello, and every time there's no response. One of the most famous moments from this film then happens when he leaves the hospital and starts walking around empty London. Now, to anyone who's not been to London, let me make it clear how big of a deal this is. Out of everywhere I've been, I don't think I've seen anywhere busier than London. This is a place where every corner you turn, it's going to be full of people. It's where television is filmed, where Parliament is located, and the home of the now King. So not only do you encounter the 9.3 million people living there, you also encounter all of the tourists, students, and communal workers. So to see somewhere like this be completely empty and silent has such a strong reaction with anyone that knows it. You see every popular landmark as well, the Houses of Parliament, Buckingham Palace and the Tower Bridge. None of them have a single soul in sight. Soon in, you get one of the most chilling moments when Jim goes into a nearby church and calls hello. This time when he calls hello, he gets a response, and it is far from the reaction you want. When in a sea of bodies, about 4 infected immediately get up and look straight at him, with just their red bloodshot eyes focusing straight on him.
Hello?
After the vicar tries to attack him, he runs and starts being chased by these infected. They run and keep running so fast that it almost seems like all hope is lost, when he's saved by 2 survivors and this new world is explained to him. This film hooks you in right from the get-go in a way many fail at. The characters in this film are so well written and memorable, particularly the dad Frank, who they encounter when running up the stairs in a block of flats. There are a few moments of subtle comedy with him that work in a way that does make you laugh but feels real. It doesn't feel like some standard joke written in Hollywood that no one would ever say in reality. The way he acts just reminds you of someone you've met before. For instance, there's a bit where they go to the empty supermarket and Jim picks up a random bottle, and he tells him not to just pick up any old rubbish, but then goes back and finds a higher quality bottle of alcohol, and picks up about 4 bottles. Or when he mentions that they're desperate for rain in England. They're subtle lines that are just woven well into the scenes and feel incredibly natural. The cinematography is really quite spectacular. Now, I'm aware if you're seeing this footage, you probably think all of what I've shown looks quite grainy and blurry, But here's why I think this is important. In films normally everything is clean and crisp, but that doesn't feel real. Whereas with this it almost feels like you're seeing some found footage. It adds a layer of grit and emphasises the dark tone, but you have that contrasted against really impressive, well thought out cinematography. For instance, there's one shot of Frank winding up a device to try and hear any recorded messages, and his hand is close up to the camera, and the background seems so far that it's almost like an image you'd see in a dream. And it's stuff like this that makes me love the cinematography, along with the wide shots of empty London and all of the Dutch angles. Obviously, I have to talk about the infected and why they work so well as an imposing threat in this film. They are very rarely in full focus, and you don't often see them actually attacking people. It's the suspense and knowing what they will do that makes them terrifying. They are pretty much always running whenever shown, and there's one moment when the four characters are all in a tunnel trying to change the tyre, and you just see the shadow on the wall of all of them running towards them. The way the infected work in this film is that if saliva or blood reaches any orifice, there's about 20 seconds before that person turns, so the threat is properly great. And it explains how the infection manages to spread so fast. If you compare it to films like Night of the Living Dead, the zombies really weren't scary unless they were in hordes and had someone cornered. So I didn't get that feeling of desperation when I watched that. But here you start panicking because you fully understand that it's near impossible to escape these things if one so much as gets close to you. Selena is a really well written character because when you first see her you form an opinion that turns out to be wrong. It seems like all she cares about is survival and she wouldn't think twice about anyone else. But as the story goes on you learn she does feel empathy and will try and help people if she can, but she's not afraid to kill someone she knew if she has to. She's a very morally grey character. This film has a strong message, I would say, in why life is important. When it initially seems like there's nothing left and the only point of living is to try and survive as long as possible, you are then given these brief glimmers of hope. In particular, a scene where Frank is getting them all to look at these wild horses galloping across the green, and there's this sense of natural beauty that still makes life worth living and encourages you not to give up all hope. I think what makes this film so enjoyable and makes you want to rewatch it is that there is this constant message of hope, and even through the bleakest of times it's not all over, and you don't get this in most horror films. There are constant moments of having your expectations being subverted, be it by killing someone off who you think will be crucial, or when a hopeful recorded message turns out to be something malign. This film also has a great cast. This is pretty much the film that started Cillian Murphy's career, along with featuring Naomi Harris, who would go on to be Moneypenny in the recent Bond films. Brendan Gleeson is brilliant. Megan Burns, who plays Hannah, I think did a great job, but she clearly struggles with the London accent and it can get a bit distracting at times. Christopher Eccleston appears in this, and it would of course be shortly before he made his debut in the 2005 revival of Doctor Who. When talking about this film, you can't fail to mention the soundtrack by John Murphy. The most famous track is In the House in a Heartbeat, which gets used for the most brutal moment in the film, and there's a good reason people remember it. Most of the tracks use a lot of electric guitar sounds, but what I noticed upon rewatching was the music playing in the brief moments where the protagonists are having fun, or there's just a moment of peace, such as when they go into the supermarket and can get whatever they want. In this scene, the song AM 180 is playing, which is much more hopeful and uplifting, but not in a way that feels really out of place with the rest of the music. It just works really well, and I think it contrasts so well with the moody, bleak music by John Murphy. This film went on to inspire so many other things within the genre, such as The Walking Dead and the remake of Dawn of the Dead from 2004. It made zombies run and added a serious level of threat and terror to these monsters. Overall, this film is a masterpiece, and I could go on for hours about it, but I won't, because I want any of you who haven't seen it to go and watch it as soon as possible. This is perfection in a horror film, and every time I watch it, I like it just a bit more. It's one of those films where I really have to think hard to find a good criticism. From the 19th of June, 28 years later, will finally be out, and I just hope to God it's good. With the promise of Danny Boyle coming back and the second part bringing Jim back into the equation, I have very high hopes and can't wait to see this story continue properly. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Now go and watch the film already.